There are villages that barely exist on maps, places swallowed by fog and salt air, where the houses hunch low against the wind. Greystone was one of them, a fishing town, quiet as a held breath, until James Holloway was born. James was not remarkable at first glance. A quiet boy, lean, dark-haired, always watching things more intently than others, thought necessary. The other children raced barefoot along the tide pools, climbed cliffs, flung stones at the gulls. James did those things too, but always returned to the same habit. He lit matches. Not to waste them, the people of Greystone treated matches like treasure, but to study them. He cupped each one in both hands and watched the flame tremble, listened to the way it breathed, tilted his head as if hearing something inside the fire. His mother, Miriam, once asked, "Why do you stare at them so long, Jamie?" And he answered in a tone so matter-of-fact it was unsettling, "I'm reading them." The villagers thought it strange, but harmless. Children were strange all the time. No one imagined they were witnessing the beginning of something that would one day be spoken of in hushed voices. That changed the night the sea tried to swallow Greystone whole. The storm came suddenly, the kind that looks like it's tearing across the horizon, hunting for something to destroy. Fishermen tethered their boats, families hid in their cellars, and somewhere out there, in the boiling dark, Elias Holloway, James's father, had not yet returned. The storm grew and grew. The wind screamed. Salt spray struck the windows like thrown gravel. Miriam whispered prayers. James watched the storm. Then, without a word, he stepped outside. He shouldn't have survived the wind. He shouldn't have stayed on his feet. But he sheltered a single match in his hands, striking it against the box. And the flame lit. It didn't flicker, didn't bend, didn't die. People who watched from behind their shutters would swear later that the flame glowed strangely, too bright, too steady, as if it were defying the storm. James walked toward the cliffs, holding the tiny flame outward. And for a moment, an impossible, perfect moment, the sea calmed. Lightning cracked. The villagers saw a half-sunken boat caught on the rocks below. Men rushed down, ropes in hand, and hauled Elias from the waves. James stood above them the whole time, the match burning calmly between his fingers. From that night on, the whispers began. There's something about the boy, something about his matches, something he's listening to that no one else can hear. Half a year later, the Miller barn caught fire. Everyone knew the animals inside were doomed. The burning beams would collapse inward any second. But James stepped forward, struck a match, and held it toward the burning doorway. And the impossible happened again. The flames shifted as if drawn toward his little match. The barn collapsed outward, exploding safely away from the stalls, leaving a clear path to rescue the horses. No one could explain it, but no one forgot it. When James turned 16, he left Greystone with nothing but a pack, a loaf of bread, and a box of matches wrapped in oilskin. He walked from town to town, never charging for help, never staying long. And everywhere he went, strange events followed. He found lost children by lighting match after match, until one flared in a particular direction. He saved a freezing traveler with a match that burned through the entire night. He relit an entire village's hearths after 3 weeks of impossible darkness, using a single match that never blackened. People shared the stories quietly at first. Then the stories traveled faster than he did. Some called him gifted. Some called him cursed. Some called him chosen. James simply walked, watchful and calm, reading the fire as though it were scripture. One winter morning, the mountain town of Dunrock collapsed into chaos. A coal mine caved in, trapping 30 men underground. The engineers gave up hope. Every attempt to dig made things worse. James arrived unplanned. Or perhaps the fire had guided him. He asked for matches. The foreman, too desperate to protest, handed him a box. Match by match, James read the way the flames bent, the subtle pulls of air shaped by the trapped men's desperate breaths. He walked along the ground above the mine until he stopped at a frozen patch of earth, far from the known tunnels. "Dig here," he said. 3 hours later, rescuers broke into a hidden chamber where all 30 men huddled alive. When asked how he knew, James simply said, "It was in the flame." And if you're still listening to this story, if you've followed James through storms, fires, and impossible darkness, then you are exactly the kind of traveler who keeps legends alive. So right now, before we follow him into the mountains where he vanished, pause for a moment. Like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Not for the algorithm, as some stories deserve to be carried forward, passed from voice to voice like a torch. Now, let us climb to the final fire. Winter deepened, snowstorms howled, travelers died on the mountain passes. The great stone beacon, meant to guide caravans through the storms, went dark for the first time in living memory. Nothing could keep it lit until James arrived. He climbed the frozen mountain alone, each step carving deeper into the storm. When he reached the great bowl of unburned timber at the summit, he took out one last match. He struck it. The flame trembled, then steadied, then shone with the impossible brightness witnesses would speak of for generations. He touched it to the timber. A roar of white fire erupted, illuminating the blizzard for miles. Travelers far below saw the beacon blaze like a second sun and began moving toward safety. When rescuers reached the summit the next day, the fire still raged strong. James was gone. No footprints, no body, no coat abandoned in the snow. Only one thing remained on the stone ledge beside the beacon: a single match, unlit, warm. People claim to have seen James on distant roads, briefly, always during storms or danger. Some swear lantern flames flicker differently when he is near. A few believe he became part of the fire he always listened to. But most speak of him with quiet reverence, not as a saint ordained by any church, but as a man who used the smallest flame to guide the lost. A man who respected fire, who read it, who walked with it, who let it speak. And so he became known, softly, respectfully, almost shyly, as people claim to have seen James on distant roads, briefly, always during storms or danger. Some swear lantern flames flicker differently when he is near. A few believe he became part of the fire he always listened to. But most speak of him with quiet reverence, not as a saint ordained by any church, but as a man who used the smallest flame to guide the lost. A man who respected fire, who read it, who walked with it, who let it speak. And so he became known, softly, respectfully, almost shyly, as Saint James of the Matches. Not because he commanded fire, but because he understood it. Because he lit the way when the world was cold. Because sometimes, in the darkest moments, all a person needs is a single steady flame.